I'm Dan Ahlers, a candidate for U.S. Senate, and with me is Michael Haskett of MB Haskett Delicatessen. Today we're going to talk a little bit about the CARES Act, specifically the Payment Protection Program. Mike, thanks for coming.
Absolutely, glad to be here.
Tell us a little bit about your business.
Well, we're a small restaurant in downtown Sioux Falls. We started about 8 years ago. I took over a little coffee shop that was here and started with just coffee and breakfast, some small things, and over the years built it up to just a humming hub of downtown Sioux Falls. It's been a lot of fun. We did a renovation in 2014 and we're just about to pay that all off in the next year or two until COVID-19 happens. So it set us back a little bit, but we're looking forward to getting back to it.
And that's great. You know, it's important, I think, for people to know that this is impacting more than just startup businesses or people that have only been in business a year or two, that this has been had a big impact on established businesses. I closed my business after 20 years just a little more than a year ago, and I can't imagine what it's like to be going through this right now, the changes and adjustments you have to make. I know that there's a lot of businesses that have applied for the Payment Protection Program that haven't received it yet. You have. Tell me a little bit about that process and how it's working for you.
We were doing great the week before St. Patrick's Day, and then it all kind of started to hit that weekend in South Dakota. And your first feelings when you realize that people are staying home and you can't afford to keep your employees any longer, and that for the safety of society you have to close. It breaks your heart initially, but then you have to keep moving. You have to figure out what to do next. And so my next steps were to talk to my bank, talk to my landlords, talk to my vendors, let a lot of the vendors know that I just didn't have the money to pay them. Ask my landlord, who, again, I've been here for 8 years, have a very good relationship with them, and they were just like, you know, when it happens, you know, let us know. Like we're not going to get a new person to take over your spot, so you know, we're going to work with you. But then talking to my bank, I was lucky that I've got a good relationship with my bank. I talk to them a lot. I let them know when things are good and I'm making progress. I let them know when times are hard and I need a little bit of help. And, you know, I think from all of the bank's perspective, they kind of knew that this was a big deal for everybody and that they had to kind of shift into high gear to get everything going. At least my bank did. My bank is a medium-sized bank. And I just, again, have a good relationship with my business banker and let them know. And as the CARES Act was passed, and it was a couple of days before the information on how to process those loans went through, my banker was diligently studying all of that. And I just felt from like calling them daily, almost annoying them, it felt like that they got me the information, they got me the applications, I got them filled out. They would revise the application the next day and then I'd fill it out again. And so I kept on that as fast as I could with the updates. And as soon as the application process was finalized, I got mine in, and a couple of days later got the PPP loan approved. And then a couple of weeks later, the funds were distributed, and that started the 8-week period of me having access to those funds. It didn't really help because we were closed, and so I kind of viewed this PPP loan as making me, my business, an extension of the unemployment division. And if I can't create revenue to help pay those vendors that I still owe money to, then that having money to pay employees doesn't really help me get back on track and get back in business. But I was able to get the money, which was a huge relief, to get a couple of staff rehired and get them doing some maintenance things around here. But getting back into business is tricky. It's been delicate. It's working with vendors that are willing to give me, say, an extension on terms that I have to repay them for products that I'm getting, and just without customers. The customers are really the ones dictating how fast I can get back in business, how fast I can actually afford to bring employees back on. They're really dictating that it's going to be slower than this 8-week period that I've been given with the PPP loan.
Well, I think you make some very important points. You're an extension of the South Dakota unemployment system. That 75% of those dollars are having to be used for payroll, and that not every business is the same. I think you alluded to that a little bit in your answer. So you can't take that money and use it to pay your vendors, correct?
Right.
So how much of it has to be used for your payroll, and how much of it can be used on other things, and what are those other things?
75% of the loan has to be spent on payroll, and I have to rehire at least 80% of the full-time employee equivalents that I said that I had before I closed. And for me, that means 7 or 8 people that I need to rehire. And I'm not confident that we will be doing the amount of business at the end of this 8-week period to justify having 8 people back on my payroll. The other 25% is for us to use for rent and utilities. And I think that's about it. I need to do a little more studying on if I can pay the sales tax that I owe with that. I don't think so. And loan payments to the bank. Again, I don't think so. I cannot use it to pay for goods that I purchased before I close the restaurant. I have to find a new method to pay that. I have to get back in business to start paying those bills that I owe.
And that means there's other small business owners out there, small business owners that have people that owe them just like you. So they're not bringing in money either. They're going through the same thing that you are. So it becomes a cyclical problem, that it's not just one business not having the money to pay those vendors impacts all these small businesses.
I buy coffee from a friend of mine who has a coffee roasting company. I owe him $1,500. His business is just him and a coffee roaster and rent. He doesn't have employees. He is an independent contractor. And so he has other avenues, I think through the CARES Act, the Economic Disaster Relief Fund, I believe, that he's gotten, but it's tricky for him. He sent me product. I owe him money for that. He needs that money. I don't have that money to pay him that he needs.
And I think you've also a couple of times alluded to the fact that the guidelines seem to continue to change. I know as the president of the Chamber of Commerce in Del Rapids, as I've been following this too and trying to help our businesses with guidelines, they continue to evolve, which makes it difficult for you as a small business owner to be able to decide the best way to use that money and to use it to keep your business running. Also, you had talked about hiring people back. That problem has been compounded too by additional unemployment aid that's out there, correct?
Right. I'm so glad that my unemployed workers and all unemployed workers are getting the, a good amount of money that they need to survive. In fact, more than they were getting before. And so that does make an issue on if one of my employees is making $1,000 a week on unemployment and they were making $750 working for me, it makes it hard for them to want to come off of unemployment. I know that if I offer them a job, they have to report that, but it's tricky.
So have you contacted your members of Congress?
I have. I've written them letters. I've made phone calls to their offices and just let them know that the restaurant industry, restaurant and bar industry in downtown Sioux Falls needs help, just like the rest of the country.
What's their response been?
I've gotten form letters back and been invited to town halls, which, I've listened to a few of them. I've tried to submit questions to these town halls, and it seems that whoever's screening the calls are giving them softballs and not connecting them with some real, hard questions during the town halls.
How important is it to you and other small business owners in South Dakota to have someone in Washington that represents them and understands how small business works?
It would be huge if they would just listen to us. I feel like they're not down here talking to us, asking us what we need. I don't think that they have all the answers, and I think that I don't think that we business owners have all the answers, but I do think that if we were to have a conversation, a dialogue, if we were able to ask questions of them and get answers, if they were able to ask questions of us and get some answers, that we would be streamlining some communication and getting better ideas on how to solve this problem for small businesses. We need some assistance in paying vendors. We need some assistance in making loan payments, and we need assistance in getting restarted. We need to buy new product, and we need to reinvent our businesses. We need to pay for online ordering, the setup, the tech setup of setting up online systems, and it's just falling on deaf ears. I've stopped contacting them because I don't really get anything back. Nobody's called me. Nobody's come downtown. None of my legislators have been down here to ask us what we need.
And as a former state legislator, one of the most important things you can do is listen. I know that when we passed legislation, when I was a state legislator and we went through the recession in the late 2008, 2009, the best thing that I could do was listen to what people were telling me. And then not only that, after we passed that legislation, we needed to be there following up to find out, is it working the way we intended it to work? And I think that is something that we could have a little more of in Washington.
Absolutely. Some other thoughts that I have, not just from a financial standpoint, but from a public safety standpoint, is it would be really great to have the health department and government legislators and business owners collaborate on how to set up our businesses, our restaurants and our bars, so that when we are able to start making money again and hiring people, that we can operate in a way that's safe and new guidelines. Do we need to have sanitation stations set up? Do we need to allow our customers access to hand washing stations? How far apart should we set up our tables? And again, access to testing to make sure that if you've been exposed, that to stay home, that customers become a part of that conversation too.
Well, Mike, I appreciate you sharing your story with me and sharing your concerns. Know that with someone like me in Washington, you do have someone that will listen to you. And I appreciate you taking the time out of your day. I know that you've got a lot to do. You're trying to make your way through this and start on your reopening process. And I know it's a long journey. And I wish you the best, and I will always be here to help and work with you.
Well, Dan, I just so appreciate you being here, not just today, but numerous times throughout these last couple of hard weeks, and answering the phone when I call and calling me back and hearing me and helping me come up with solutions that will help all of business in Sioux Falls.
Well, thanks again, Mike. In the spirit of handshaking, maybe we'll just do the elbow. So thanks again.
Thanks, Dan.